Hey everybody, welcome to another Maba 2 video. I'm Matt.
I'm Andy. My cat just jumped on my desk.
And your cat's name is?
I'm not gonna...
Charlie.
Fuck!
Matt, Andy, and Charlie. Today we're talking about aliens again. If you don't like it, get out of here. We're talking about UAPs, UFOs, and the new interview with Jake Barber, the full one that you watched the entire thing of, right?
I did. I did watch the full interview with Ross Coulthart. I know, actually, today there's a new interview with him that dropped. I did not see that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I saw the full initial interview. Much better than the original edited and cut up clips that they put together initially. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, he talks for, it's like a 2 hour and 40-minute interview.
Wow. Well, I think it'll be an interesting Mob of 2 video because we'll have my perspective as someone who's only seen the edited version, and then yours because you've seen the entire thing, so maybe you can fill me in on some of the most important parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, he goes into more detail in his background. I know some people, in that initial one that you saw dropped, people were saying him being like his service record was, there was questions about it, but he explains in the full interview that it was pretty secretive, and he was actually used as like a cover to like protect what he was really doing. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He talks about a lot of different things. He talks more about the psionic, psychic connection with these UFOs. He talks about more in detail of his experience when he was feeling that feminine energy. And he goes into his background that when he was a child in California, he was part of this GATE program, which was for gifted and like talented students or whatever. This program, and they would basically like test you on everything, and like long story short, they were trying to find these like psionic children, and I guess it's like stronger with like certain children, and like he kind of described like who has more of this connection. It seems to be people with feminine energies, like children, women, and then gay men. That's like one of the things that people grabbed onto was it was like left-handed gay men have this like psionic ability more likely.
You telling me that the social justice warriors have been right all along?
That's right.
Oh my god.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the interview. I'm trying to remember. I watched like half of it at like 3 a.m.
Oh, it's a long interview. It's almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, I was doing shit while I was listening to it. So, but
I'm glad I have you to listen to the whole fucking thing for me and film it.
But he seems pretty confident that within the next year, like, he's going to be able to bring forward definitive evidence, and like he's working with certain parts of the government, or like backing his Skywatchers company, which like it's definitely the reason he came forward is this Skywatchers company, because otherwise I don't think he would have, because he's not really like doing it like out of the goodness of his like soul. Like, he does believe everyone should know that this stuff exists, but like he's not going to go against the government at the same time and shit like that. But there was a lot of interesting stuff in the interview. He talked about he was a part of this like event or this like meeting of like billionaires and like experts in their fields and like scientists and all, like there was this like the elite of the elite like all met at this area, and they were like
Wonder
showing
how we
off.
got into that.
Yeah, and like well, he was there to show off this stuff where like he said there was like billionaires, there was like psychic children there was like politicians and like showing off all their shit. And then like for the event he had like his psionic asset with him, and they called like a UAP over the whole event, and like it was flying around and like everyone was like amazed. This is what he claimed.
I mean,
and then also Ross Coulthart. This is weird though. Ross Coulthart said like he was there too.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He's like, I saw it and it was like
what?
A surreal, sublime experience that he never had before.
What the fuck?
And Jake Barber's like, yeah, so we're going to be able to like capture that. He's like, I'm like more than confident that within the next year we're going to have like extremely high quality video footage of that people are just not going to be able to deny.
Holy fuck.
And I mean, and he's like, listen, like Skywatchers, he's like, I'm not asking anyone to buy anything. Like all the money we have is privately funded by like billionaires and like parts of the government. So he's like, I'm not asking you to buy anything or whatever. He's like, just watch and like see what we show you. So,
and your whack job detector didn't really go off.
I mean, I can't believe it 100%, but I mean, what threw me off was like how confident he is that like he's gonna be able to get this like groundbreaking footage, and like he's also not like charging people for anything. I mean, unless he's like trying to make a living off of YouTube streams off of it. So, I mean,
right, yeah.
He did release one episode, maybe a day or two ago, of the Skywatchers, like the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a letdown from what I hear. It was just like a blurry picture of like the egg thing that he like summoned one day. But I'm hoping that throughout the year it gets better. I mean, it is weird that like there is something coming in the sky that when they're doing this. But it is like super blurry and shit right now, so I don't know. There's a ton of shit he talked about. He got like they showed that part when he was talking about like his experience with like the being or whatever when he was like retrieving one of the crafts. He was overcome with emotion and crying and like felt the feminine energy. That was like expanded upon in the full interview, and he was like actually like crying more. Like it seemed like real the way he was describing it and everything. It's worth watching the full interview. I mean, there's a ton of shit I'm leaving out probably.
Yeah, but I think you're touching on probably some of the biggest parts of it, because they're kind of throwing me off too, just hearing about them, you know?
Yeah. But, do you remember? I think I told you in the past and showed you a video. I don't know if you remember his name, Michael Herrera.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I do.
He was the guy who was like in the military. I think he was a Marine, and he was in Indonesia, and he saw like this huge UFO. They were there to like help locals from like a natural disaster, and he saw like over the hills like a UFO, and him and his squad looked down, and like they got like seized by this like black ops military group that like took their weapons. And like, you remember this? I
do. Yeah, they took the weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that full interview with like Jake Barber, he kind of like verifies that even more, because he said like he spoke to him and heard his story, and what like really stood out to him was two things: was the description of the craft, which he said that's exactly what they look like. He said they're like almost like hexagon, like it's split into like 8 sections on the top, and then like a circle. Right. So like the way Herrera described it was exactly what he retrieved in these retrievals, just not as big. And then also Herrera said he saw these like almost like cargo boxes with like tanks on the top of them. Okay. And what Herrera initially thought was they're like smuggling drugs into these UFOs, and then people on were like, no, they're actually like, that would be like for humans, so they're like smuggling humans. So like when the Herrera story dropped, everyone thought it was like a malicious, like they're smuggling humans out of these like Indonesian countries and like other countries like that. But Jake Barber confirmed, he said, I know exactly what he's talking about because we use them all the time for the retrievals. He said those are compartments for the psionic assets. So those people would go in there and be like a comfortable, quiet space for them to telepathically call the UFO to them. And he said it's just, that's what it was, like a comfortable space. And he said a lot of the psionic assets are from like countries like Indonesia and other like spiritual cultures. Like he said, like a lot of Native Americans are psionic assets, and like people who like are more connected spiritually. He said like psionic assets can be like dimmed in people from like the shitty like things like fast food and like other stuff, like disconnecting us from like the universe and like things like that. So he said like other countries like native or in cultures like Native Americans, like they'll be part of the program more often.
Sounds like this guy was like in the X-Men as a kid or something.
Yeah, I know.
Like fucking Charles Xavier's school for gifted children, you know?
Yeah. He says these people are like, he said they're not really like being like smuggled away, or like he said they're paid like extremely well. It's like they live very comfortable lives to do this. He said even him during his crash retrievals, he said like they took great care of him financially, and he said like when he had a kid and like he had to deal with like personal things, they let him take time off. He said it was like very like good. So I don't know.
Fascinating, man. I mean, I don't know. I feel like for the average Joe, a lot of the talk about this, like the kind of supernatural or spiritual element to it, I feel like that's going to throw a lot of people off in terms of like not believing it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like as we continue to do these videos, delving deeper into that whole component, I think is kind of fascinating, because it is hard to believe. It's hard to wrap your head around that. It's easier to just believe that, you know, due to the size of the universe, that we've obviously been visited by aliens, but it's harder to believe the component that he's talking about, that there's a spiritual or like psychic connection to it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for anyone to wrap their head around, and I mean, he seems sincere about it. What throws me is like the confidence that he has. He's like, you don't have to believe me, just see what we bring to the table, like when our videos come out. So, and he's like getting, apparently already parts of the government are working with him already. And like another thing, I don't know if you saw that the Trump the press secretary commented on the drones over New Jersey.
I know before that they were trying to say, this was like a week or two ago, they were trying to say, it's been confirmed that the drones on the East Coast couple months ago were pretty much all like approved, which is bullshit. That's a lie, you know.
Yeah, that's what the Trump administration said. They were all FAA approved, and then also hobbyist drones, which is crazy because the New Jersey mayor and senator and like they're all saying like, well, it's still going on, and like FAA approved drones don't shut down like airports and like fly over military bases like these things are doing. But Jake Barber also commented on that, saying that's just a straight up lie because I was hired by the FAA to look into these drones and they're not approved. So someone's lying to the press. So yeah, it's
crazy.
Yeah.
That part of it is, that part of it should piss people off because you're just being lied to your face by your own government, you know?
Yeah. And someone's either lying to Trump about it or Trump is lying.
Right. And it could honestly be either one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have their motives for why they're lying, but at the end of the day, it still doesn't seem right. Like we talked about in one of the other videos, you know, if you're a tax-paying American citizen, you should care about if you're being lied to.
Yeah.
But wow, some of this information is really insane.
And I'm trying to remember more of what he said. It's I mean, I wish I was at that like billionaire get together or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, I know.
When he was talking about that, I was like, this sounds a little. I don't know if I could believe this, but what like shocked me was like at the end of that, Ross was like, he's like, and I was there too. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, holy shit! And like the way.
Do you think he's genuinely credible, Ross? Because I don't. You know more about that guy than I do. I know he's been doing it for a while, but
he was like a legitimate journalist in Australia. He's like a legit guy. I mean,
he doesn't have a reputation for being a little out there.
No, I mean, the David Grush story that he did was like his first time getting into like UFO stuff, and like that kind of just sucked him into the world because he's like, no one else is really covering this. Not many people are like taking like a factual journalistic approach to these things, and like someone has to like, talk to these people.
Crazy that one of the most important questions of our time isn't being delved into deeply by an actual journalist too often, you know?
I know. I mean, it's so easy to just like dismiss it all just immediately. Like you like take a thumbnail of Jake Barber's like wide open eyes and just be like, this guy thinks like you could call UFOs down to Earth with like left-handed gay men. It's like so easy to like pick things, you know?
Yeah. The special power of gay men.
Yeah. So,
it is. I mean, you gotta admit, some of it does sound just like I was saying earlier. It's really hard for. I mean, even I don't know if it's true. You know, I'm still taking all the information in, and I'm waiting for more updates like you are. And obviously, I didn't watch the whole 3-hour interview like you did, or listen to it. But I'm trying to take in the information from you, like the key points, and wait for more to come out. But I think the main point that's really important is that he's saying he's confident that footage is going to come out soon that proves it. You know, it's kind of a key point there.
Yeah, that's got to be. I mean, this is more how I'm looking at it. Is like it's interesting to hear, and then like throughout the year, if like he does produce some like actual legitimate footage where they're like, oh, holy shit, this looks real, then you can like look back at the interview and like really dissect it and be like, well, if he did this, then this other shit has to be like more legitimate too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the reason I'm trying to have an open mind. Like, I hope people listening to this, they should know that just because I believe that there's aliens out there, that's a very general belief. That doesn't mean I believe 100% of every little detail that comes out from each person. I find them fascinating, the details, but I don't know if 100% of it is true yet. I'm taking all the information in and I'm processing it and I'm figuring out what I believe. And we're still on that journey, you know? But I will say that the amount of people coming out, David Grush and Michael Herrera, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
And Jake Barber and Lou Elizondo is his name.
Yep. Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah, and there's even more like Christopher Mellon, and
Yeah.
you know, you could go all the way down there. There's a lot of real people: Carl Nell, the Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and Commander David Fravor, and his
the squadron.
And Ryan Graves. The list keeps growing, and they're all legitimate.
And you know, I would say it's pretty low odds that all of those people, many of which have high-ranking roles in the military, either past or present, pretty hard to say that they're all batshit crazy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially Commander Fravor, who, like, if you look at his interviews, and like, him and his squadron saw the Tic Tac UFO, like, came like face to face with it in their jets, and this is multiple witnesses. There's sensor data. There's everything you would want, and the guy himself doesn't even like care about UFOs, or like, he's like, listen, I don't know anything about like this psionic stuff or like whatever all these people are talking about. All I know is this is what I saw, and it's a technology that we're not going to have 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Me and my squadron came face to face with it. That's his story, and that's like, he's not saying all this other spiritual stuff or whatever you want to throw on top of it. He's just like, this is what we saw. We have the sensor data. It blinked away 100 miles away.
Yeah. No, I feel, if I remember correctly, when I had done a deep dive into some of this stuff in the past, that was one of the main ones that really like sold me on it.
Yeah.
Fravor.
Yeah, Commander Fravor. I mean, him and his squadron, they're some of the best fighter pilots in the world.
Right.
They know what the fuck they're seeing.
Yeah.
If you don't take four people's, because there was two jets, each with two people inside of it. Those four people saw it exactly. Then they caught it on radar from the ship, and then they have a little video of it too. And I'm sure they have a better video that they haven't shown.
Right.
So it's fucking,
it would be fascinating.
Crazy.
No, yeah, it is. It would be fascinating if someone could get a lot of these guys in the same room together for a conversation. You know?
Yeah.
Fravor and Barber and Grush, and the other ones. That would be an amazing video.
Yeah.
Conversation with all of them.
I know at the interview that Jake Barber did today that got released, there's this YouTuber Jesse Michaels who he makes pretty good videos on like all this stuff, and they seem pretty well made and everything. But it's weird. I saw that like what's his name? Jake Paul is in it too. Like, he's asking Barber questions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the guy, but if anything, he's going to bring a lot of more awareness to the whole issue, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
So in a way, it's a good thing. He's kind of a numbskull, but I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe I'll watch that one later and we'll talk about it. But
yeah, we'll definitely do more videos about this topic. And to anyone watching, I encourage you to try to at least have an open mind. Don't, obviously don't believe every little thing you hear and read, and it's good to be skeptical and to try to really hone in on details and find out more information. But I was pretty, I don't know if shocked is the right word, but I was a little put off by when the initial edited video interview came out with Jake Barber. I understand that the way they edited it, I didn't like how they edited it either. I kind of had an issue with how they did the video, but every single comment on that video, every single one was bandwagoners. Like, there was a shit ton of comments that said, this is definitely a video of an actual egg, like an egg you get from a chicken, tied to a rope above a carpet. Like, all bandwagoners. Like, that shit annoyed me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it definitely, I'm sure a great percentage of that is just people being funny and like all that shit. But I'm sure a portion of that is like, if you're going with this is real, it's part of a disinformation campaign from those programs to try to get people to think that way also. They're like, yeah, it's definitely an egg.
Yeah.
But real quick, let me add, there is another point that I remember from that interview. So he talks a little bit about the Dobster process, which is what these whistleblowers go through when they want to release like a book or like any interviews talking about these events. They have to go through Dobster, which is like part of the Department of Defense review to make sure they don't release any classified information, don't say anything that affects national security and stuff.
Right.
And it's a very long process. It could take 6 months to a year just to get an approval. And they'll like send back shit with like a million things in black ink that they take out that you can't say. So
Gotcha.
He talked about this in the interview, and he said we kind of found a little bit of a work around, because if you're writing something, say I found, like, you're allowed to say like fictional stuff, like say like I met like E.T. Like, they're not gonna black ink that out.
Okay.
But if you're like I met E.T. in like Guantanamo Bay, then they'll like X out Guantanamo Bay because they don't want to leave any locations, like things like that.
Yeah.
So he also said it's a tricky situation because if they black out certain things, that's kind of like them admitting that it's real and they don't want to release that information. So,
right.
But if they don't black it out, then they kind of put out to the public like, hey, this could be false and we're just going to let it go.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a policy they have on the internet too, because they say that like there's like classified information that's like out on the internet in public that they just can't do shit about.
Right.
So he like I guess for the Skywatchers episodes, like he has to go through the Dobster process to release that shit.
Okay.
And instead of doing like, because they make you do everything all at once, but he split it up into episodes because he wanted to like send them like a script for an episode and then get back the blacked out ink. And then he was like seeing what they let not go classified. And then he would like make up points in his mind to be like, well, I'll connect these two dots through like informed guesses and like how he thinks that they're connected. And then he would submit it that way and see if they blacked it out or not.
Okay.
And he said like he did this like 1,000 pages at a time instead of like the full like 10,000 pages. And then like Dobster got pissed and was like, you got to release the whole like program that you're trying to release, because they were like starting to pick up what he was doing, because he was doing it piece by piece instead of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like a loophole doing it. Like he's like, well, this is one episode, so we're releasing the whole thing.
Wow.
He explains it a bit better in the video, but
No, I followed that, and that worked.
yeah, that's what he said. He said it was like a loophole that he was able to get through because they don't want to like classify shit and like accidentally be like admitting to him that it like they know it's actually real too.
Right. They don't want to admit it.
Yeah, because he said some of the information that he knows, he's like, he knows that it wasn't even like classified because it was only for the people there that day looking at the shit. He said there's no like paper trail to like the Pentagon, and like that's how they keep it like under wraps more. So he's like trying to get that information through Dobster.
I'm surprised that he. I mean, I was surprised.
Surprised he admitted that.
Well, I'm surprised he even came out and admitted that the way he did, and I'm also surprised that in the role he had with the government initially. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't have him sign a ton of documents and forms that said, you're literally never allowed to talk about any of this with anybody.
Yeah, I guess because they. Well, I guess that's technically what Dobster is. I mean, yeah, like all these guys have to go through that program, and that's their like DOD's job to determine if they can say this yet or not. Because technically, like they also, because he was like kind of like undercover with his job with the government, so he was like technically like a mechanic, but like that's why he like jokes in like the edited interview that they explain better in the full one with context. But he's like, I was a highly talented mechanic. And that's like him joking that like I'm like doing all this other shit that like why would a mechanic be doing these other programs? And like yeah, it's all very interesting. I mean,
it really is. I mean, we get a little bit farther into each video, but there's just so much information out there, so many different facets of it. But yeah. That was a great talk. I enjoyed all the key points. Thank you for sitting through 3 hours of it, inform me of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be more updates soon that we can talk about.
I think so. I mean, I don't know if he reveals anything new in this other interview, but I'm just waiting for this fruit that he promises to deliver.
Me too.
We'll see.
We will see, and I'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Bye, Charlie and Andy.
Bye, Maddie.
Tell that pussy I said.
You said what?
I said kiss. All right, fuck you.
Fuck.